All right. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of India AI, I warmly welcome you all to this important webinar on advancing India's AI ecosystem through the safe and trusted AI projects. As you know, this webinar is an opportunity to engage in discussions around AI safety and trustworthiness and explore how the expression of interest for safe and trusted AI projects can foster collaboration and innovation in this space. We have with us two very esteemed speakers for today's webinar. We have Mr. Balaraman Ravindran, Head of Sirai IIT Madras, and Dr. Rohini Srivathsa, CTO, Microsoft India and South Asia. They will share their invaluable perspectives on embedding safety principles into AI research and development. I welcome you both, ma'am and sir. To start the webinar, I would request Kavita Bhatia ma'am to give us an overview of the India AI mission, its broader objectives, and also the intention behind the current expression of interest, which has been floated by India AI for safe and trusted AI projects.
Good morning, all, and I welcome all of you for this webinar. Happy New Year to all. And all of you must be aware that in March last year, the Government of India has approved India AI mission, which is a whole of government mission, which is having an objective to democratize AI, improve the AI's readiness index of India, and also have an innovation so that we can have a lot of innovation in our country. With this background, the whole of mission was thought of. In fact, a lot of study was done, committee was created, which looked into all aspects which touch the AI, and also what are the areas which need to be taken care of in order to improve the AI readiness of our country. So the committee submitted a report. Based on the report of the committee, 7 pillars have been thoughtfully created as a part of the AI mission. I'll just touch upon the pillars. The first pillar is about the compute, where we will work very closely with the industry to create 10,000 or more AI GPUs, which can be given to the researchers, startups, academia, industry, so that they can use these GPUs to have an AI application for India. The second pillar is the large multimodal models. As a part of this pillar, we will be coming up with our own India-specific foundation model, which will be based on the India's language aspects and all the India's data, so that we can have our indigenous large multimodal model. The third pillar is very important, which is the data pillar. As a part of this pillar, we will be having a dataset platform, which will be bringing AI ready datasets available from the government, so that the data can be used by the researchers or the startups to create innovative applications of for India, for the public services, basically. The fourth pillar is a skilling pillar, which is very important pillar. We have looked into all the skilling aspects taken care by the other government entities, and in fact our own ministry, what has been doing in the AI skilling aspects. And after doing a thorough study, we realized that we need to work on two most important aspects. One, to have the fellowship program, so that we can help the BTech, MTech and PhD students to focus more on the AI based research, and so that our research index can also increase. The second aspect is to create new job prospects in the tier 2 and the tier 3 cities. So because of that, we will be very working on the data and AI courses in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, so that we can allow these resources in these cities to take up the AI ready jobs. The fifth pillar is the startup pillar, which we will be basically helping the startups in the entire journey. We will be supporting them in pre-seed, seed, and commercialization, so that our startups can be nurtured, and who are working in the AI aspects can be nurtured. The sixth pillar is the safe and trusted pillar, which is the most important pillar of today's discussion, where we will be working very closely with you all to come up with the tools, technologies, and other aspects which will be very useful for us to develop applications which are ethical, responsible, and follow the safe and trusted aspects in the application development. So in this regard, last year also we had floated one of the innovation challenge on other themes, which we had got a very good response, and we had in fact selected 8 applications who are working in this domain. Uh, in that regard, looking into the current requirement also, we thought that we need to come up with the second innovation challenge, which will also work on the areas which are very critical. You all are aware in the current context, we need to look into the content, the frameworks. Also, we need to measure the AI application, the risk poses by these applications. We need to test the applications which are market ready, and most important, the deep fake also, because a lot of applications are generating deep fake content. So how do we identify? So with this background, we studied what all things are important, and the 5 or 6 themes which we have identified and floated are very critical. More will be talked about by Rohini ma'am and Ravindran sir, but these are the themes which are very important when we talk about AI readiness and responsible AI. So we would like to work very closely with you all so that we can get good applications, and we can work collaboratively to develop. And once it is developed, we will make sure that it is implemented by all, used by all, so that we can have the applications which are responsible and ethical. So this is what I wanted to mention, and over to you, Tanya, to take it further in this
Right,
webinar.
right. Thank you, ma'am. That was quite insightful and gave us a good idea of the objectives of this expression of interest. Now, I would like to invite Professor Ravindran, who has been quite actively working in the field of responsible AI. Sir, given you have a lot of experience in understanding how different domains are engaging with AI, how do you think, especially academia, can contribute to advancing AI safety research? And more from the lens of how can we align this research with human values to ensure that AI safety is human-centric across the life cycle to be able to mitigate the long-term societal impacts of AI?
Sure. So thank you, Tanya, and good morning to everyone. And let me join Kavita Bhatia in wishing all of you a happy New Year. And so we are talking about AI safety, right? So one of the things I want to touch upon is that um, the technology, right? The AI as a technology has matured to a point where it's impacting every aspect of life after, right? I mean, whatever job functions you're performing, AI is going to be impacting that, and therefore we need to have a much more holistic understanding of the overall impact of AI. Right? It is not enough for just technologists to talk about it. Even though both we have people representing academia and industry here, both of us are actually technologists at the end of the day. So we should make sure that the dialogue gets expanded. So even though you say how academia can contribute to it, it is not just technical academia. I would love to invite people who are with a social sciences background, with a legal background, and a variety of different sectoral expertise. They should also be looking at how what will be the impact of AI at large, right? And what does it mean for AI safety? Right. So let me expand a little bit more on what my understanding of AI safety is. I mean, it's going to touch on a bunch of different things that are there in the call for the expression of interest. So the first thing, typically when people talk about AI safety, right, they talk about things like data privacy, data handling, and making sure that your data is properly secured. People talk about things like federated learning and consent, informed consent from people, and so on and so forth. So a variety of data related questions that people ask, right? And I think the first phase of the call actually covered quite a bit of that piece, including the right to be forgotten and so on and so forth. So there's a whole bunch of themes that were with regard to machine unlearning and other approaches to making sure that if people do not want their data to be used once it has been used, they should be able to recall it. So there are a bunch of different things which people talk about in the aspect of data, right? But then safety goes way beyond just protecting the data or worrying about the data pipeline that is used to create these AI models, right? So the first aspect of safety that we should worry about is how well are these models actually going to perform, right? When you deploy them in your final application that you want to work with, right? So individually testing just the AI application alone in a laboratory setting on a carefully curated data set and giving a certificate saying that, hey, this model performed well in our lab, therefore you should deploy it and use it in your application, right? So that is not a very responsible way of using AI, right? So it has to, I mean, you have to work with the domain experts, figure out what will be the exact context in which this AI will be used, right? And then make sure you're able to give guarantees of performance for the entire pipeline, right? Not just for the AI model alone. When the AI is being used in a specific application, how it's going to impact the application itself. So we have to worry about how we will build evaluation, frameworks, evaluation protocols, right? That are going to talk about the embedding of the AI in the application also. So this is something where we don't have a great understanding of it right now. So we don't have the tools that are available for us to just go ahead and start doing this evaluation. It's not like I can say that, hey, from tomorrow onwards, every company has to give me a certificate like this. Only then I will be able to procure this AI product, right? So we are not yet in a position where we can say that. So a lot of work needs to happen, right? To make sure that we have a robust evaluation framework that not just looks at the AI piece alone, but looks at how the entire end-to-end performance of the AI piece, right? Right? So it's like saying that. So, for example, this is the thing I was giving. It's a little bit of an extreme example. Is that suppose you make a mistake in a pregnancy test, right? So if you say that somebody is pregnant, if they're not, there are some social costs to that. But the other way around, if somebody is actually pregnant and you say they are not pregnant, the can be significantly bad, right? There's a real example of a person that I know was actually prescribed medication, assuming that she was not pregnant, and that resulted in her pregnancy having to be terminated later down the line, right? So that is a huge cost, the entire system that you're going to deploy. And so we have to worry about how the system is going to perform. So that is one piece of it, right? So the second aspect to evaluation is that for some of the metrics that we really want for these AI systems to provide us, right? It's not even clear what is the evaluation that we have to perform. So, for example, one of the desirable qualities of AI systems is that they should be explainable, right? Everybody says, oh, the neural networks are black box, we should open them up and we should explain it and so on and so forth, right? But do we even know what is the desired quality of an explanation? Is it measurable? Right. So again, there are a lot of theories, a lot of proposals are there in the literature, and this is going to be very much application specific, right? So what constitutes an acceptable explanation in a financial setting, right? In retail banking will not be the same in the healthcare setting, or will not be the same in some kind of a government service that's being provided, right? So we have to think about how this will interact with the domain that you're operating in, and how would you actually measure it, right? So that's another thing, right? So explanation is just one such desirable property. Depending on what you want in a specific application, you might have to come up with different ways of looking at the evaluation framework itself. What is the metric I'm going to measure? How am I going to measure? What kind of data sets do I need? What kind of benchmarks do I need? Right? All of these questions that we have to answer. Okay. So that's one part of it. The second part of the question that you asked me was more about human values and aligning it in the Indian context, particularly, right? So many of these questions I was asking about whether it is explanation, and people sometimes talk about fairness and and ethical decision making and so on and so forth. Even though there is some amount of work that's being done globally in terms of what constitutes fair decision making and what are protected attributes which you should not be using for decision making and so on and so forth. We don't really have a very good systematic way of having recorded that in the Indian context. Right. So even if somebody comes up with a way of measuring whether a system is fair or biased in the Western context, I might not be able to take the algorithm right away from there and adopt it for the Indian context, because I wouldn't have the, the ancillary data sources which I can use for testing these models. Right? So there is a lot of work that needs to be done in that space. In fact, in one way of thinking about it is like it's codifying what human values mean in India. Right? So that is something that we have to do for the Indian society and Indian market. So that's not been done. And that again, some of this is a little bit of a powder keg for industry folks to get into. Maybe this is something where academia should front end some of the work that happens, and with support from the government. Right? Again, these are things that are obviously not going to be done with just technologies. You need people who are working on the ground, who are looking at the impact of AI on various social sectors as well, right? So I'll just one last bit before I hand off to back to you. So one of the things that you have actually asked me in the question is about long-term impact on society, right? And this is going to be very different from different sectors. And I'm not talking about the emergence of super intelligence or anything right now, right? So that's, we are not worried about. Of course, I mean, it has to be there somewhere at the back of your mind. But the long-term impact in a particularly a labor-intensive economy like India, right? So has to be thought through. Right? So we have to figure out what should be the. I mean, Kavita ma'am spoke about skilling and other programs that are being run, but these are basically being run to enable people to do AI better, right? But what we really should be thinking of is, hey, now with adoption of AI in different sectors, what are the skills that they need to do their own sector job, right? Whatever job they were doing today, what are the skills that they need to do their job better? Right? So what kind of tools that we as researchers should develop so that different sectors, maybe if it's an agriculturist, maybe it's a teacher, right? Teacher in a rural school, right? So for them to do their jobs better, what kind of AI tools are needed and what kind of training needs to go into those people? So that's something that needs to be understood in terms of where would we be 5 years down the line if AI continues in this kind of a trajectory, and with all this initiatives that India AI mission is putting in place. I'm very sure that will be a much broader impact on all sectors in India. And so this kind of a long-term impact is something that we should think about as well. And I can answer more questions if they come up, but I'll stop here.
Thank you, sir. That was truly thought-provoking, and you covered a lot of different aspects. I would now like to invite Dr. Rohini Srivathsa to share her thoughts. Ma'am, while industry's emphasis on speed, competition, and innovation is well placed, it often sidelines the societal implications of AI. And what do you think should be the key considerations for AI developers in India that they should prioritize to ensure that safety as a principle is embedded in the design of AI solution, tool, or framework?
Yeah, thank you very much, Tanya. And first of all, let me wish everybody in the audience a very, very happy new year again. Let me also start by congratulating India AI mission for ensuring that safe and trusted AI is a key pillar as part of the India AI mission. Because as Professor Ravi also spoke about, it is, in my mind, the idea of trust is very fundamental to any technology's adoption. Because AI is such a fundamental general purpose technology and its ability to transform every sector of the economy is so significant, the importance of trust becomes even higher because without that, the ability for people to adopt the technology, leverage it, make it part of their economic growth is going to be seriously challenged. So I think one that is that. I think the other element I would say is given the element of AI is becoming so pervasive, the framing of trust also has to be expanded a little bit. We have worked in the area of responsible AI for many, many years, but even what we are seeing as the organizations are leveraging AI, the different parts of the organizations, whether it is startups, large corporates, enterprises, organizations, nonprofits, government, etc., the ability to bring in different parts of the organization is becoming increasingly important. And by that, I mean people, as Professor Ravi also said, people from different disciplines, not just technologists. But even among technologists, we are seeing the need to include people who are security professionals, for example, people who are privacy professionals, as well as the AI responsible AI safety professionals, because this is not a very siloed challenge anymore. I'll give you examples. As soon as you look at an AI application, you are looking at the issues around sensitive data, as well as emerging threats like prompt injection attacks that become key to think about. So security professionals become just as important to be part of of an enterprise, of an organization's thinking around AI. Similarly, privacy, the idea of personal data, the idea of how AI applications are leveraging personal data becomes just as important. Then, of course, the idea of safety comes in, which is again broader, includes areas around harmful or unreliable content, answers of groundedness. So the idea of trust has expanded beyond what the AI community has traditionally thought about as responsible AI. We are seeing the need to include security professionals, privacy professionals, and safety professionals and responsible AI professionals together. And finally, the idea of governance is just as important because around the world, including in India, there are efforts going on, standards and AI regulations are emerging around the world. We already know that the EU AI Act is already in effect, and the compliance measures are happening. So our ability to think about governance, not just doing what the organizations are doing for addressing security, privacy, and safety, but ability to show compliance, ability to document that becomes very important, especially as you scale with AI. The second idea that I'd like to leave forward with the audience here is that this is not an afterthought. You have to think of trust and safety of AI from the beginning. So, as one is looking to develop your applications, it is something that you need to think about as a design principle. If I look at the vantage point I'm coming from in Microsoft, we have been on this journey since 2016. Since 2016, 2017, we have been on this journey of defining AI principles, creating committees and governance structures, developing over the years the Office of Responsible AI, creating standards, making them available to the communities. And then, of course, in the more recent past, as AI is becoming exponentially pervasive, creating transparency, tools and techniques, safety commitments, etc. So there is a lot of work that needs to go in as the country, as organizations are leveraging AI. So making the idea of trust and safety as a design principle becomes supremely important. Let me go a little bit into the four ideas I spoke about regarding security, privacy, safety, and governance. Now, if you look at the idea of security, while of course in the EOU there are certain areas talked about, but these are very interrelated. As I briefly mentioned, when you talk to CISOs, which is where many of these concerns are coming from, is the idea of saying, how is my data being used? Are people sharing data in prompts that is potentially sensitive data or potentially proprietary data? So the idea of making sure that sensitive data oversharing is a concern, is a security concern, and therefore security experts need to be a part of it. The other side of it becomes that AI is increasing what is called the threat vectors and the security vulnerability surface, if you will. And therefore, how are systems ensuring that these new kinds of threats and risks are addressed by the AI systems? Going into the privacy area, we spoke about it. Their areas become important that of course, privacy impact, but consent. Consent is a part of India's DPDP Act as well. But how do you ensure consent is managed at an organizational level in a consistent way, in a way that can be governed across the organization? Finally, there are areas happening in privacy where data sharing can happen using during technologies like confidential computing, where data can be kept private, not just during rest and transit, but also during processing. So how do you ensure that organizations are leveraging some of these technologies to ensure that privacy concerns are addressed? Finally, let us talk about risks of safety. And I briefly mentioned about areas around jailbreaks and injection attacks, as well as ungrounded outputs and other risks which come with generative AI. There, I think the importance that organizations need to realize is that you will have to adopt an approach of defense in depth, because just the model by itself, while the approach to doing evaluation of models, making sure that the data that's being used by models is correct, but that may not be enough. So as a platform provider, what we are looking at is a defense in depth approach. We are looking at the model, which obviously is selection of the model, which is the right model for use cases, but then creating safety systems that monitor both the data that goes to the model as well as the model's outputs, to ensure that the application is safe and is in doing what the creators of the application intended the application to do. And there's a lot of work that's happening in terms of creating content safety and other mechanisms to test for groundedness. Then above that is the ability for system grounding message, how to ensure that your model is being steered, that you are testing for the data on which it has been grounded. And the last layer becomes that of user experience, to ensure that you are creating the right human AI experience. So the idea I'm leaving forward with the people in the audience here is that don't just think about the model. Look at it as a defense in depth. Look at it as a layered approach, such that you can ensure your AI applications are not just safe and trustworthy at the time that they are being deployed, but you have the ability to ensure that during the operations, during deployment, as the system is evolving, you are able to test and ensure their trustworthiness a long period of time. And the last one, of course, as I mentioned, for governance purposes, there is going to be increasing requirements for reports and ability to have observability, as well as provide the reports to show that you are ensuring consistent standards and practices for responsible AI development. With that, I'll give it back to Tanya to take it forward.
Thank you, ma'am. I think all of this will be quite helpful for all our participants to be able to make sure that all the things that you mentioned they're mindful of all of these things when working on any AI development, be it a solution, framework, or a tool. Thank you so much. We will now move towards the Q&A session. There are a couple of questions in the chat box, and but before we do that, I would request Kavita Bhatia ma'am to address certain queries which we have received from the participants. Ma'am. Okay. All right. I think we don't have her with us at the moment, but until she's here, Ravindran sir, there was a question in the box which I would like to direct towards you. Abhinav Mittal has asked that considering the significant context-specific variability in AI and the potential for harm in its decisions, how do you tackle the challenge of defining standards that can reliably ensure ethical AI performance?
So, yeah, so you rightly point out, these standards are going to differ from domain to domain, right? So some of these ethical standards cannot be specified in a centralized manner. So, for example, if you say that gender is a protected attribute and you should not be using gender in terms of decision making, that is not true in healthcare setting, right? So you would want to use gender in a healthcare setting because obviously that's going to be a huge determiner of outcomes. So how do you set up these ethical guidelines is going to be very sector specific, and there are many critical areas where we already have regulators, right? Whether it's healthcare or it is finance, right? So we do have existing regulatory structure, and we should figure out how AI ethics could accommodated within that existing regulatory structure. And there are might be a few issues that might need more central regulation, like what people are doing in the DPDP Act. But by and large, many of these ethical guidelines should be sector specific.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. We also have two hands raised.
There was one other question that was addressed to me in the Q&A panel. I
Wait,
don't remember.
Until then, I think Kavita ma'am, if you are here, you can take up the two
Yeah, I'm
questions
there.
on eligibility criteria and IPR of the projects.
Yeah, just
Right.
as I already mentioned that all these startups, industry, academia who are basically Indian can participate in this. Earlier, we had mentioned about some of the time duration about the company and all. Now we have relaxed it to 2 years. We have said that any organization or startup in existence from last 2 years can participate. In fact, we also would like you to come independently, or if you want as a part of consortium, they can also participate as a part of consortium. And this 2 years condition will apply to anyone in the consortium as well. So this is what I just wanted to mention. So again, reiterating, the organizations, startups, academia, in fact, students can also participate. Anyone can participate in this EOI and can take up the theme which suits them and apply in that theme. This was one. Second, any initiative Government of India takes with the organization, just wanted to mention about the IPR issue also, that the IPR will be joint IPR, and in case it is some which is restricting some of the areas like national security, then we will hold the entire IPR. Otherwise, it will be a joint IPR. This was what I thought
Right.
to mention.
Thank you, ma'am. Ramakrishna has a question, and I have allowed him to speak. Sir, can you hear? Krishna Ravi Srinivas, you have a question. I have unmuted you. You may ask it now. Okay. Ansh Mehra, Swaraj Bari.
Hi,
Uh,
I'm.
yeah, please, Ashku.
So folks, I am actually an AI teacher. I wanted to know, are you looking for teachers as well for this program, if we have any experience?
Not as a part of this EOI, but yes, teachers we would be interested in. As I mentioned in one of my skilling pillar, we are setting up data labs in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, and we would like the teachers to participate so that they can train the people, the students in tier 2 and tier 3 on AI and data courses. There we would certainly require teachers to come forward and be a part of the ITIs where the data labs will be created.
And how can we send our profile for that? And where do we send it?
You can basically wait for some time, because we will be coming up with that, because currently the states are identifying the ITIs. As and when the list is complete, we will be making it available on the India AI portal, and whichever ITI suits you, you can apply in that ITI for the taking up of the teacher job in that ITI.
And are you looking for people to help make the syllabus as well? Because we've been doing that for a while, like to just shortlist what should be taught.
We are very thankful to you for asking this question, but already that course curriculum has been developed. along with the industry, because the ITIs will be focusing on training the students on the industry requirement, because industry would be selecting the students from the ITIs. So already the course curriculum has been prepared. But thanks for your support. You can drop in your name, email, and phone number. We will make a note of it, so that in case we will need further refinement of the course, we will certainly approach you.
Done. The chat is not activated. So can I get your email if I can send it to you?
Yeah, my email is kbhatia@gov.in.
kbhatia.gov.in.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just request all the attendees to ensure that their questions are aligned to today's webinar, which is regarding the expression of interest for safe and trusted AI projects. Would be happy to take those. Ma'am, there's a question regarding the deadline, and people are asking if they can expect any extension in the same.
It is very difficult for us to say that
Right.
we'll be extending at the moment, but before the end date, we will take a call, and we will certainly publicize when, if we are extending the date. And every information will be made available on India AI portal. So would request all of you to have a look at the India AI portal for all other updates on this.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. There's a question wherein a person is asking, as a research scholar, how can we participate in these EOIs?
You can participate from your institution.
Right. Okay.
So actually, there was one relevant question to this. Somebody had asked if is it compulsory for a team to have an industry partner, or can it be just academic proposal itself, right? So
No, there is no mandatory that industry should be there. You can collaborate amongst yourself from the academia institutions. You can collaborate and submit a joint proposal or a single proposal. That call you will have to take, but not mandatory that industry has to be there.
Right. There's a common question regarding the timeline for the proposals as well, ma'am.
We have very clearly mentioned that the last date, so all the proposals have to be submitted by 12 o'clock midnight, or in case we are extending, we will also make sure that it is updated, the last date is updated on the portal itself. The format of the proposal is very clearly mentioned in the document. So all the aspects which have been asked in the document need to be very clearly covered in the proposal.
Right. There's another question from Path. I'll just read it out for you, ma'am. We are CHRI, an Indian entity under the Companies Act and an affiliate of PATH with expertise in public health. The guidelines state that the grantee institution cannot entrust project implementation to another entity or divert the granting aid received. Additionally, any collaboration with foreign parties requires prior approval. Would it be possible for PATH as a US-based organization to offer pro bono support for this project?
No, we need Indian organization owning the entire thing, as it is India specific, the ownership of the entire application and the IPR in case any new application, innovation is being done, which needs to be, in fact, IP has to be taken, then the Indian organization has to be there. So pro bono from an US based organization may not be acceptable. So you as an Indian entity can take the entire application development without any private international participation.
Okay.
So can I answer one of the questions
There's
that was posed to me, which I think is relevant to the call? So this question from Anurag Tiwari, I wanted to ask that since India being such a vast country with different demographics, cultures, beliefs, how could a pan-India AI solution that caters to all different ethical considerations look like? Would it have to be specific region-wise or on other criteria as well? Is the question. So I would anticipate that we would be moving towards a framework for building these specifications, right? And the specifications, like I already have been talking about, specifications having to differ from sector to sector, and some of these would probably differ from region to region. For example, if you think about biases, right? The biases that are there in the north of the country and the biases that are there in the south of the country are so very different. In fact, we are biased towards each other, I mean, frankly, right? So that's those kinds of things will have to be, factored in depending on the region from which the person user is coming from, the region where the service is deployed, and so on and so forth. So what we should be looking at is a framework, right, where different variations can be accommodated, and not just write everything down in fine grained detail. So that's what I think should happen.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
There's another question which says, hello team, is there a sandbox made available for participants to experiment and demonstrate solutions?
No, not at the moment, but whatever is the requirement, and in case we are able to do it, we will be doing it. Otherwise, at the moment, there is no sandbox environment created.
So I have a question for you, madam. So as part of the data pillar, is a sandbox being envisaged?
Yes, that is currently under the development. That is the reason I said
Sure.
we are hopeful that this month we will be in a position to launch not a full-fledged but a very limited data platform, which will slowly be upgraded to the end goal. But that's the reason I said not at the moment, but we are working towards it.
Thank you. Ma'am, there's another question which is regarding the eligibility of 2 years for startups and companies, whether this has to be fulfilled by the nodal organization or by the partnering organizations, or all of the organizations who are participating in
The
collaboration.
all the partners will have to fulfill.
Right. There's another question which says that if the funding is being provided as a grant, will the money transfer be milestone based?
Yes, it is milestone based.
Okay. Ma'am, another question wherein the person is saying that since no funding is being provided for the compute resources, will India AI be providing compute facility through its hardware platform as AI requires high-end GPU servers?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All
In
right.
fact, many of the academic, just wanted to mention, many of the academic institution as a part of National Semiconductor Mission also has GPUs being created along with the high-end compute available in the academic institution. That can also be utilized. Aravat is also being there, which has been created by India, which is currently able to cater to 410 AI petaflop. Even that can be provided, and we are also in the process of bringing 10,000 plus GPUs. As and when it comes up, even that can be made available based on the eligibility criteria and certain other conditions which need to be fulfilled so that you can get the access to the compute.
Just to give some reassurance to people, the process of empaneling cloud providers for the 10,000 GPUs is already on way. So it's not like it's too far in the future. We should see it soon. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. There's another question. Is there any upper limit or cutoff to the grant that will be allocated to the projects under India AI?
This question I will not be able to answer, but whatever is logical, you need to provide that logical, and the committee will take a call depending upon the objective and outcomes of the proposal and the fund requirement given by the entity or the organization. Based on that, the committee will take a decision. So it is very difficult for me to say the cutoff for the each and every theme which has been given.
Thank you, ma'am. There's another question wherein the attendee has asked about the conditions to apply and eligibility for the chief investigator and co-chief investigators submitting the proposals.
The application which has been formed, application form which has been
Yes.
provided on the website very clearly mentions all these criterias, because this is how we have been doing the EOI and other application innovation challenges. So everything is very clearly mentioned in the document. If those conditions are met, they can apply.
And just to add on to that, there is a pro forma which you have to fill in when you apply for this EOI. And you have to fill in all the details required for your chief investigator as well as the co-chief investigator by aligning it to all the guidelines that have been mentioned and provided in the submission guidelines document. Ma'am, there's another question, which is, can organizations apply for projects where the primary objective is to build an ethical AI framework mentioned in the list of safe and trusted AI themes? The output will not include an AI tool.
Yeah, I think there's one
Yes.
area where it is very clearly mentioned about the framework, which is ethical AI framework. Tools are not expected. You have to come up with a framework. But rest all where the tools have been explicitly asked for, then tools have to be given as a part of the project.
Okay. However, this is just to highlight that we are focusing more towards AI tools. So if the participants can potentially work around, even in this theme of ethical AI framework, to be developing a technical tool as an output, that would be given preference and would be helpful for the AI community. There's another question, ma'am. For EOI, what would be the expectation in terms of the content? Is it supposed to be a full-fledged proposal?
Yes,
Yes, right.
yeah. In fact, we are expecting a full-fledged proposal because the committee will look into your proposal, and based on that, they will take a decision. So it has to be a very full-fledged with milestones and the duration and everything very clearly mentioned in the proposal.
And just to reiterate, the pro forma that has been provided in the submission guidelines document covers all of this detail. So please ensure that you submit the proposal closely aligned. In fact, use the pro forma to apply for this EOI. You have to fill in everything that's provided in that pro forma to be able to qualify for this EOI. Have an industry partner during the EOI phase. Can we submit the EOI without an industry partner if presently we don't have one? Ma'am, were you able to hear the question that I just said?
No, I could not hear it very clearly.
Okay, I'll just repeat this one. Do we need to have an industry partner during the EOI phase? Can we submit the EOI without an industry partner if presently we don't have one?
Yes, it is allowed because the same question was asked earlier. It is allowed. You can submit the proposal without the industry partner.
Right. Ma'am, there are a few more questions. We can take them up for the next 2 minutes. Can the EOI be a research and development proposal? Is joint proposal necessary for this EOI?
It is not necessary that it has to be a joint proposal. You can apply independent also, or you can apply as a consortium, whatever you think is right. The most important is that, as Tanya also mentioned, that there is very clearly a document being provided about the guidelines, performa. Would request you to have a look at it, go through it, and apply as per that format.
Right. If there are any more questions, any more queries, we are providing you with an email address wherein you can mail us all your queries and they will be answered.
Tanya, you can write down that
Yeah.
email address in the chat.
I'm just putting it down on the, yes.
Yeah.
Ravindran sir has asked a question, ma'am.
So we don't mind those people sending it again in case they have bandwidth to take up multiple projects.
Okay. I have provided an email address. Anyone who has any question regarding the EOI can please feel free to drop us a message and we shall get back to you. As we approach the end of this engaging session, I would like to thank our speakers yet again for sharing their expertise and our audience for participation and thoughtful questions. We look forward to a very successful EOI with the AI ecosystem in India. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all,
Thank
and
you,
look
everyone.
forward for more participation. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Have a good year again.
Bye.
Yeah,
Thank
happy
you.
New Year again, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.